Pokemon Sippy Cup Sapphire is a brand new ROM hack that tries to make Pokemon Sapphire as hard as possible without changing a single enemy team. Instead, players are stuck with the weakest of the weak to defeat powerful boss fights and challenging trainer gauntlets. Evolutions are gone, and all but a handful of Hoenn's worst single-stage Pokemon that are relegated to the late game have been purged as well. Sippy Cup Sapphire, perfect name by the way, no notes, is the ultimate Nuzlocke challenge. My starters are no longer the frog, duck, and mud puppy that the Nuzlockers of yore have come to expect. Far too powerful for the Sippy Cup early game. Instead, my choices are Seedot, Surskit, and Torchic. I guess when there's only 4 fire types to choose from, Torchic is arguably the worst, since even this guy gets Yawn. Anyways, I decide to go with Surskit, and after smacking down Poochyena with a few bubble beams, Kulkin and I are off. 2 best friends on an epic David and Goliath adventure. To think that someday this will all be a distant memory of a time where we were young and unhardened by the long journey that still awaits. Our first task, taking out May and her Seedot. Oh, this is a Trico, huh? Our first task, taking out May and her Trico, which Kulkin does without any problems whatsoever. Nice job, buddy. With Pokeballs, it's now time to start getting some encounters that will surely be incredible additions to the team. Like Duff the Wormpole from 103, and Gomez the Igglybuff from Route 102. Well, hey, at least on Route 104 I can get a Poochyena, which, I mean, Williams isn't exactly the best Pokemon in the world, but compared to these coughing babies, she might as well be a hydrogen bomb. And this is right in time for Sippy Cup's first trainer gauntlet. Remember, this game is based off of Pokemon Sapphire, not Emerald, so multi-battles don't exist yet, and I'm instead forced to face off against youngster Billy and rich boy Winston in back-to-back single battles. This, for the time being, isn't particularly challenging since our enemies still have unevolved Pokemon. With access to Petalburg Woods, I can get another encounter, Sprouse the Nincada. But with a team that's now 60% bug types, Roxanne's Nosepass is looking quite challenging. Fortunately, I have one last chance at a potential Nosepass counter to the east of Rustboro City on Route 116, which has been geographically changed into a full route gauntlet. In other words, once you enter the route, you have to beat every trainer in one go or die. Thankfully, Williams and Kulkin absolutely crush it. And by breaking through the 6-man gauntlet, I can get my Route 116 encounter, Lotad. Our prayers for a Nosepass counter have been answered. With DiCaprio on the squad, it's time to get the very first badge of Sippy Cup Sapphire. By using the TM for Bullet Seed, Roxanne's Geodude doesn't stand a chance. Oh my god, that doesn't even kill Geodude. That's upsetting. Oh, good thing we hit 3. Hey, fun fact, Lotad is terrible. I mean, I've never truly appreciated how much Lotad has mastered the art of sucking, because they normally evolve into Lombre before they have to do anything. With a bit of luck though, DiCaprio can still rise above his genetic misgivings and win this fight with some Bullet Seed high rolls. At first, things look bad. By coming up short with 3 hits from Bullet Seed, the Lily Pad leaves Nosepass with a sliver, not once, but twice, which allows Roxanne to heal with 2 potions. Fortunately, the recovery can't get Nosepass back to full HP, and though DiCaprio never gets 4 hits from Bullet Seed, he also never fizzles out with a meager 2. So by winning the speed tie and firing off one last Bullet Seed, victory is ours. Oh, and if you like longer ROM hack videos like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. You might think you already are, but there's a good chance you're not. DiCaprio also takes out Pico's captor in Rust Turf Tunnel, and while we're there, I find another encounter. The true test of Dr. One Ball HG. Yeah! One Ball HG! Woo! As exciting as that is, Abra literally cannot learn an attacking move by level up, so if I want to use Foster, I'm gonna need to teach her some TMs, most of which aren't limited to one single use in this game. For example, the Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, Ice Beam, and Psychic TMs are no longer purchasable at the game corner in Mauville City. Anyways, in Dewford Town, I get the Old Rod, which means I can fish up a bunch of new encounters, including from a newly formed pond in Little Root Town, Team Aqua Stocks Rising, where I find a snow runt. Not sure that makes a whole lot of sense, but I'm not complaining. Little Carpenter here is sure to be a wonderful addition to our team. Dunce the Golding from Petalburg City and Temple the Love Disc from Route 109 I'm a little more skeptical about, though the latter does get access to Speedy Charms. Or rather Speedy Charm, singular, because the power points of certain moves have been drastically decreased for balancing reasons. In Granite Cave, I catch a slugma named Grint. Then, after delivering Mr. Stone's letter to Steven, I make my way to Slateport City where I can fish up one of the best encounters for the early game, a Battle Armor Anorith. The only problem is that in addition to being immune to critical hits, Battle Armor seems to also make Anorith immune to the powers of Dr. Wumball HG. Do you think Pound kills this Anorith if it crits? Let's find out. I'm gonna say no. Yeah. All right. Shit. That might have been stupid. Shit. Oh my god. Oh no. Oh, no. No. I'm so dumb. Whatever, we didn't need a frickin' Anorith. Psh, I don't know, man. Seems like an Anorith could really help. Dude, where have you been? You've been gone for months. Well, believe it or not, Flygon, I have a life outside of doing these increasingly confusing sponsorship segues for your YouTube channel. I don't know if that's actually true. I went on vacation, backpacked through Europe, met a girl, fell in love. It's what summer's all about. You know, that's a good point. Summer is a beautiful time of year. More time to relax, be outside, travel, and whatever your plans are, you can supplement them with premium audio on the go thanks to the sponsor of this video, Raycon. Raycon's everyday earbuds are the perfect summer accessory for listening to your favorite music and podcasts. Their latest model comes with a 32-hour battery life, multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with 2 devices at once, Raycon's quick charge function that yields 90 minutes of battery from just 10 minutes of charging, and active noise cancellation to block out unwanted background noise when you're just trying to relax. Plus, starting at just half the price of other premium audio brands, you don't have to break the bank to get all these features. I love using my everyday earbuds when I'm out for a run, which now that the weather's nice, I am doing almost every day. Their ergonomic design makes them fit comfortably in my ears, and thanks to the everyday earbud protective case cover that has wireless charging capabilities, I never have to worry about my earbuds dying mid-run. Wish I could say the same thing about my Pokemon, huh? You've made that joke before! It was a while ago! So if you want to grab a pair for yourself, you can go to buyraycon.com/Flygon to get 15% off Raycon's best-selling everyday earbuds. Brought to you by Raycon with a 30-day happiness guarantee. Thanks so much to them for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back to the challenge. Next up is Brawly, whose duo of bulk-up spamming fighting types is pretty tough to crack since I've managed to avoid getting even a single flying type. Peck from Dunst is our only way to deal super effective damage, so we might be in for a rough time here. Against Machop, I lead with Kulkin, planning to do as much damage as possible with a few bubbles. Now, said damage is significantly less than I was hoping for, but I luck out as Machop simply chooses to go for attacking moves instead of spamming bulk-up. The result is that after a few turns, I switch to Dunst. We outspeed and hit Machop with a Leer such that a Peck will now hopefully take him out instead of bringing him into healing range. Dunst survives another Karate Chop that triggers our held Oranberry, and then Peck does indeed take the KO and bring in Makuhita. I make the immediate switch to Temple as Makuhita hits a scary arm thrust that thankfully stalls at just 3 hits. This lets Temple fire off a single charm to drop his attack by 2 stages, making the 2 hits from another arm thrust do effectively absolutely nothing. At the end of the turn, Temple's held Lepa Berry activates, allowing her to use one more charm and bring Makuhita down to -4 attack, though it's here where the chubby toddler starts going for bulk ups. So my plan is to switch to Grint and start spamming Smog, which has a 40% chance to induce poison. Since Makuhita is thick fat instead of guts, and bulk up has increased his physical defense, poison is my best way to deal consistent damage. Unfortunately, even though we connect with 4 Smogs, Grint does not get the poison and falls with almost nothing to show for it. That was unfortunate. Or perhaps it was how I explained it in the moment. That was bullshit. In hindsight, this wasn't exactly the best plan to begin with. Smog only has 70% accuracy, and though all 4 Smogs did hit, the chance of missing out on the poison was still roughly 13%. Not exactly high, but also not ridiculously low. I really thought that Smog had a much higher chance of poisoning. Damn you, negativity bias. In case it wasn't clear, I'm not really doing too many calcs here. At the time, I thought that Sippy Cup Sapphire would be the perfect candidate for a vibes-based playthrough. It just so happens that the current vibe is an uncontrollable spiral towards my untimely demise. After bringing in Duff to once again unsuccessfully trigger a poison with 3 poison stings, my last line of defense is Sprouse. Since Sapphire Makuhita doesn't have Vital Throw, I decide that it's worth dropping his accuracy with Sand Attack before we desperately start doing damage with Fury Swipes. But as the turns go by, it becomes painfully transparent that Sprouse just doesn't have what it takes. Brawly still has healing items, and though we do resist Makuhita's attacks, we just don't have enough HP to get the job done. The only way to win this would be if Sprouse gets a perfectly timed critical hit to avoid a heal, but the odds of that? 100% for the GOAT. That may seem like an improbable miracle, but the cloth of averages works in mysterious ways. Good to see you again, buddy. I guess we're bringing back all the channel characters. Now, it may seem like a major victory to be leaving Brawly's gym with only a single death. The problem is that Grint was possibly the worst Pokemon to lose at this point in the game, given that he was our best answer to the various Magnemonies that plague this next split. As a pre-Gen 6 Steel type, there are very few types that the little magnets don't resist, and depending on the level, they can threaten with powerful electric attacks, guaranteed 20 damage sonic booms, and debilitating supersonics. Fighting just one is a major endeavor that requires multiple Pokemon, which makes gauntlets that feature them all the more difficult. My newest teammate from Route 110, Cyrus the Sandshrew, grants another electric type immunity and the ability to drop Magnemoni's accuracy with Sand Attack, but even so, Triathlete Anthony's twin magnets come dangerously close to wiping my team. And then after that, we still need to beat Fisherman Dale, though fortunately we fare much better against him. Dunce can one-shot his 3 Tentacools with horn attacks, and since Whalmer just doesn't go for rollout, DiCaprio handles him without any problems whatsoever. I got off easy there, but it's clear that things will only get harder from here as enemy trainers start evolving their Pokemon and having better movesets. Route 110 is also home to arguably the hardest rival fight in the game. Though with the changed encounter tables, we do have a bit more type coverage than we would at this point in Vanilla Sapphire, so this fight is actually pretty straightforward. Temple uses Charm on Maze Lead Whalmer to ensure that DiCaprio can rack up some Bullet Seed damage without taking much damage from rollout. To avoid a potential critical hit, I make sure to switch to Cyrus, who ultimately takes the KO and baits out Grovyle. So this is where our Little Root Ice type comes in. Carpenter threatens a 2-hit KO with Icy Wind, and all she has to do is tank a few low-leveled hits in the process. Really, the only way this goes poorly is if Carpenter misses an Icy Wind, and that's obviously what happens. There are 2 things in this world I know to be true. 1, Poppy is a very good girl, and 2, if a move says that it's 95% accurate, it's lying. Since Grovyle knows Pursuit, I have no choice but to hope that Carpenter dodges a critical hit. And thankfully she does. Our 3rd Icy Wind connects, so Grovyle falls, and May is left with only her Numel, who goes down to a single water gun from Temple. This paves the way to Mauville City, where prior to challenging the gym leader, I need to first defeat the Winstrate family, an extremely scary no-break gauntlet of 4 trainers, most notably anchored by a Meditite with high jump kick. Once again, a lack of even a single flying type is really cramping my style. In the hopes of getting a better answer for the Punchy Onion Diaper Baby, I first make my way to Route 117, which, like Route 116, is another full route gauntlet. But with the ability to heal between fights, this isn't nearly as scary as the Winstrates. It's not long until we've safely made it through all 6 trainers and are free to catch our Route 117 encounter, a Trico. Speedy though he may be, Gosling's not helping against Winstrate Vicky's Magnetite. And neither is the Trapinch I catch from the newly added grass patch in Verdanturf Town, which means that my Winstrate matchup is looking quite poor. My lead is Sprouston and Kata, but against Victor, I use Dunce to get the 2-hit KO on his Tailo with Horn Attack, and then bring in Cyrus to take out his Zigzagoon. Against Victoria's Roselia, I switch to Carpenter, who can 2-shot with Icy Wind while managing to avoid taking any damage by dodging a Stun Spore. That's really nice because it means my entire team remains fairly healthy as we head into the back half of the gauntlet. Vivi's got 3 Pokemon. Meryl goes down to a few absorbs from Gosling, Numel falls to another Water Gun from Temple, and Shroomish falls to a single Icy Wind from Carp. Alright, that's pretty depressing. We've got a 7-level advantage. In order to avoid a potential series of paralyses and recovery via Absorb, I just switch to Gosling, who takes the KO and brings us to the dreaded fight against Vicky and her Meditite. It's pretty scary to see the powerhouse immediately increase her attack with a Meditate, but the plan is to nail her with Sand Attack and hope that the recoil from missing high jump kicks is enough to get a quick KO. Sprouse's held Lepa Berry ensures that he can get off a second Sand Attack after Meditite sets up with a second Meditate. And then it's time to tempt fate. I'm the world's greatest Nuzlocke! All right, one more time. With that flawless victory, we can get the HM for Rock Smash right in time for the fight against Wattson, who has a significantly easier team in Sapphire than he does in Emerald, since he no longer has an Electrike or his Ace Manectric. What is this, Johto? Now, in place of the 2 pups is a Magnemite, hence why Rock Smash is so vital. Gosling does decent damage with the 20 base power fighting type move, especially after a few defense drops. By the time Magnemite has hit 2 Thunder Waves, the first of which is cured by our held Cherry Berry, and nailed Gosling with a Supersonic, they're sitting in the yellow at -3 defense, so I simply switch to Dunst on a Sonic Boom, and then take the KO with a Horn Attack. That brings in the cranky Pokeball, so I switch to Cyrus on a Spark. The hope is that they'll lock into Rollout as opposed to going Nuclear, which is why it's actually a bit of a bummer to see Voltorb miss on the first turn, but since they just miss another one on the next turn and Slash manages to barely be a 2-hit KO, Cyrus is miraculously at full HP as Wattson brings in his Ace. My ground types are crucial here because otherwise Shockwaves are going to be doing way too much damage. Cyrus starts by breaking through a Confusion to hit the defensive beast with a Sand Attack so that their other moves are significantly less accurate. I can cycle through Gosling to get Cyrus back in on a Miss Supersonic, but then on the following turn, Cyrus gets nailed by another, and this time she does hit herself in Confusion. There's no point going turn by turn here. The general idea is that I need to whittle Magneton down with Rock Smashes while shaking off Supersonics with switches whenever I can. It takes a lot of patience and a splash of luck as Wattson can prolong the entire ordeal with his 2 Super Potions. But after 8 minutes, Radcliffe can come in on a Shockwave. And now that Magneton has eaten a few defense drops, we just need to fire off a few more Rock Smashes. Back-to-back Sonic Boom misses seal the threesome's fate as we bring them into the red for the 3rd and final time. Wattson attempts one last Brady-esque Hail Mary Supersonic, but since that too misses, Radcliffe takes the hard-fought KO to win us the 3rd gym badge of Sippy Cup Sapphire. Just like in the vanilla games, this now unlocks the northwestern expanse of Hoenn, which means that we can get several new encounters. Johnson the Geodude from Route 112, Muniz the Torchic from Fiery Path, and Quan the Machop from Route 113. But before we can venture any further, I discover the start of what appears to be another gauntlet. In fact, this is the single longest gauntlet in the entire game, beginning on Route 113 and not ending until I've gone through Route 114 into Meteor Cave, 5 and out the other side. That's 15 fights, all with the same team of 6, since Falarbor Town's Pokemon Center has been closed until further notice for health and safety concerns. My chosen squad consists of Quan, Temple, Johnson, Carpenter, Gosling, and Cyrus. So with that, I take the leap past the point of no return. Right away, I face off against one of the scariest trainers in the entire gauntlet, Ninja Boy Lao, who has a few coughings that threaten with self-destruct. My lead is Quan, and after going for a hidden power rock, fucking hell, just right off the bat like that? Jesus Christ. Well, thankfully, none of the other coughings follow suit, so Johnson's able to wall them all without any more close calls. The remaining trainers on Route 113 are all pretty easy. Temple takes out those that are weak to water-type moves, whereas Johnson and Cyrus wall all the physical attackers like Ninjask. On Route 114, the first 3 trainers are also rather underwhelming, which lets me catch Cosgrove the Oddish before continuing on with the gauntlet. Carpenter and Gosling can take out the Graveler and Roselia double battle, and then the rest of the trainers on the mountainside are simple enough. Yeah, it turns out that just because it's the longest gauntlet doesn't mean that it's the hardest. There's probably some sort of life lesson in there and maybe an innuendo or two, but that's low-hanging fruit, and I for one like to work hard for my vitamin C. Since there's not actually any trainers in Meteor Falls, after catching Harris the Ralts and going through the Team Aqua dialogue, we've officially survived the gauntlet and safely made it through to the other side. Well, that was rude. Thankfully, my team is relatively equipped to deal with these unexpected fights. Temple can use a lucky 68 BP hidden power water to 2-shot Meditite, and Cyrus walls Makuhita. Collector Hector, that rhymes, has a pretty scary Zangoose, but Johnson acts as a very reliable counter, especially since he immediately rips a magnitude 9. Last is Black Belt Knob, whose sole Pokemon is a Machop that Cyrus easily dispatches with a few slashes. So now we've officially survived the gauntlet and safely made it through to the other side. Our reward? Access to some extremely valuable citrus berries, which in Gen 3 restore a set 30 HP, making them extra powerful earlier in the playthrough when the average total HP is still rather low. This is great timing because we now need to head to the top of Mount Pyre and face off against Archie, who has a Sharpedo that knows Crunch, an 80 base power special move that's terrifying for this point in the game. Though our first problem is the Mighty Anna. I lead with Cosgrove, hoping to land an early poison powder, but Mighty Anna uses Sand Attack to successfully drop our accuracy, such that Cosgrove does literally nothing before it's time for her to switch out or die. I reluctantly choose the former and bring in Quan. Originally, I wanted to avoid taking damage with Quan so that he would have a safer matchup against Sharpedo, but that's clearly out the window. After another Sand Attack, I connect with my first attack of the battle, bringing Mighty Anna into the yellow. Then a Bite does another small chunk of damage before we miss our second revenge. That hurts. I decide to switch to Cyrus in the hopes that she'll survive a few bites to take the KO with a slash. And though she does survive, Mighty Anna is bulky enough to just barely survive a slash, letting Maxie heal with a super potion as we at least get off a Sand Attack. Surely if it worked for Archie, it'll work for us. Oh wow, it actually did. With that, Cyrus can get Mighty Anna back down into the red, but to finish him off, I gotta bring in Carpenter and nail the dog with an Icy Wind. This brings in Golbat, who immediately fires off a Supersonic, but Carpenter is clutch enough to break through and nail the Winged Rat for less than 50%. Jesus. I switch to Johnson, who can shrug off a wing attack. Bite does considerably more, though with a single rock throw, we get the second KO of the fight. All right, we simply don't get crit here, it's fine. Crunch does 55 to 65% to Trico. We got it. Woo! 2 of these will kill. Yep, we're faster, thank you, badge boost. Look at that damage. All right, just don't crit, don't crit, don't crit. Okay, I mean, that's fine. Just thinking if there's a better play here. Nope, don't crit. Don't crit again, buddy. Come on, King. Don't crit. Ah! Colossal throw from Archie, if I'm being honest. On Jagged Pass, I catch Holland the Spoink, and the egg from the woman in Lavaridge Town hatches into Shipka the Wynot. Then it's time to face off against Flannery, who, as with most gym leaders, has a weaker team in Ruby and Sapphire than in Emerald. She leads with Slugma, and I lead with Kulkin, who rips a Bubble Beam for an easy kill.
Well, you hate to see that.
Poor little Culkin. With a not terrible base special attack stat and a boosting nature, I absolutely thought a 65 BP Bubble Beam would have been enough to get the KO. You really do hate to see that. You also hate to see Cyrus come in and nail Slugma with what appears to be a 2-hit KO slash, only to low roll on the second hit, thereby letting Slugma fire off a smog that not only connects, but also gets the 40% chance of poison. What the hell, man? The reason I didn't just go for dig was because I didn't want to give Slugma the chance to set up a sunny day. At the very least, the second Slugma elects not to set up the sunny day either, so that should make her Ace Torkoal a little more manageable. I start with a switch to Holland on an overheat that we eat moderately well thanks to Thick Fat. And since Torkoal isn't holding a White Herb and Sapphire, she's now already sitting at -2 special attack. I switched to Johnson on a body slam, and then hoping to bait a second overheat, I switched to Dunst. But it doesn't work, so I switched to Holland.
Oh my freaking god, dude.
Unfortunately, this means that I gotta just go back to Johnson and start ripping magnitudes. Torkoal gets a paralysis before we can get even a single attack off, but then a magnitude 7 brings her down to 50%, which means that a magnitude 8 or higher will just instantly end this fight.
Just give me an 8. 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 8. No!
After our Citrus Berry activates, Flannery uses her final Hyper Potion, and Johnson lands a depressingly weak magnitude 5. I mean, at least it's better than getting fully paralyzed.
8 or higher. 8 or higher. 8 or higher. 8 or higher. Dude!
After another body slam, Johnson finally connects with a magnitude 8, so Torkoal is now just one hit away from falling. Though my guess is that even at -2 special attack, she can get the KO with an overheat from this range. So I make a gutsy read.
Yes! Oh my...
It seems that even in Sapphire, Flannery's Torkoal is no joke, and though Cyrus can finish off Torkoal with a dig, the loss of not just my starter, but also my best charm user is a devastating blow and a rude awakening. With 4 gym badges and 3 deaths, our journey continues. First to the desert of Route 111, where I catch Butler the Cacnea and pick up a claw fossil that I revive into an Anorith named Monk. That battle armor ability would have been real nice 30 seconds ago. By pre-poisoning Quan to trigger his Guts ability, he can sweep through the otherwise scary trainers in Norman's gym. And though my father's 2 Slackings are theoretically our toughest matchup yet, both Carpenter and Monk can learn Protect by level up, so this fight is really not that difficult. Carpenter in particular is incredible because she can lower the first Slacking speed with Icy Wind, allowing Quan to come in on a loafing turn and then take the KO such that he's fully healthy as Vigoroth comes in second. So he can pretty handily tank a Fachade and retaliate with a boosted Revenge that misses out on the KO. We're really starting to feel the effects of using NFEs here. In order to play around the critical hit, I switch to Johnson, and it's a good thing I do. So now baiting Feign Attack, I switch back to Quan, which does just enough to trigger our held Citrus Berry. Since the last Fachade did 37 damage, this should now ensure that Quan survives most critical hits.
Okay, that would have killed. A lot. That would have killed by a lot.
Well, in theory, that was a pretty cool play, right? All that's left is the second Slacking, so by switching to Monk, we can immediately reap the benefits of battle armor. With consistent damage from Metal Claw, aided by some lucky attack boosts, and protects on every other turn, Slacking falls soon enough. Just like that, the 5th gym badge is ours. And my successful Patricide unlocks the HM for Surf, which has been nerfed to 40 base power, by the way. This allows us to add several new fighters to my ever-growing roster of Pipsqueaks. Most notably are Wilson the Staryu from Route 106, Tremblay the Shroomish from Route 119, and Lautner the Carvana from the Abandoned Ship. The road to Fortree City is paved with some pretty scary trainers now that many of them are beginning to use fully evolved Pokemon. A back-to-back against Ranger Jackson's Breloom and Birdkeeper Hugh's Swellow is particularly infamous, with the former having very few guaranteed checks. Now I thought that Holland would be one such check since he's moderately bulky and fast enough to outspeed, but it turns out that the little piggy was one critical hit headbutt away from becoming the run's 4th death. That was lucky. Johnson walls the Swellow, so we've now made it to the Weather Institute, but the Team Aqua Grunts there barely put up a fight. So all that stands between us and Fortree City is the final mandatory rival fight, and though Maze Grovile now knows Leaf Blade, we've accrued enough teammates to have solid answers against not just the Gecko, but his 2 teammates as well. Spears the Barboach takes out Numa with an Earthquake, Cosgrove 2-shots Grovile with Acid, and then she stays in to dispatch Whalmer with a few absorbs.
Sorry, May, you just got Cosgroved.
And to think I almost rage-sacked her against Archie's mighty Anna. East of Fortree City, I can catch 2 new teammates. Portman the Zigzagoon from Route 120, who's effectively useless, and Ortega the Vulpix from the Scorched Slab, who's the perfect answer to Winona's Skarmory since she can learn Flamethrower by level up. Winona's team is tough, easily the hardest challenge of the game so far. She's got 4 fully evolved Pokemon. One is super fast and can set up with Double Team, another is extremely physically bulky, a third threatens a Dragon Dance Sweep, and the 4th is a Pelipper. Now, normally the best way to deal with Winona is some combination of Thunderbolt and Ice Beam spam, but in Sippy Cup Sapphire, that would require using the Soul Thunderbolt and Ice Beam TMs, which can both be critical to fights later in the game as well. So the question is, do I use them here at the risk of having weaker matchups later down the road, or do I try to beat Winona without them at the risk of never getting down the road in the first place? It's a tricky calculus and an excellent example of the resource management that you don't normally have to deal with in Nuzlocke's of vanilla games. I ultimately decide to save my Thunderbolt and Ice Beam TMs, though I do teach Foster Shockwave for an easy way to take out Pelipper. So with that, our battle against the 6th gym leader of Sippy Cup Sapphire begins. Winona leads with Swellow and I lead with Carpenter. My hope is that she can immediately lower her foe's speed with Icy Wind, but after a double team, we miss our first attack. So I make the switch to Johnson, who resists Swellow's aerial aces, though she simply opts for double team number 2. That's annoying, but fine as long as we can get off just 2 hits. I start first with Secret Power because previous matchups against Swellows have showed us that a single rock throw comes just shy of an OHKO, and Winona's speedy lead has Endeavor. Unfortunately, Johnson misses 4 secret powers in a row, letting Swellow get up to +6 evasion, meaning that my moves now only have a 33% chance of hitting. Pretty unlucky to have missed that many hits in a row, but it's still okay since Aerial Ace is only doing about 10%. We do miss 2 more times until our 7th secret power finally connects and brings Swellow into range where a rock throw should now get the KO. So all we gotta do is race the clock and hit 1 before we run out of HP. And with a Citrus Berry, we should have plenty of opportunities. 7 to be exact. But believe it or not, Johnson misses all 7 rock throws, ending a legendarily horrible performance. I mean, Johnson didn't just shit the bed there, she shat the entire damn mattress firm. And part of me wants to sack her on the spot, but Geodude is way too valuable. So instead, I switch to Shipka. If she can connect with a counter, we should still be able to take out Swellow. And as long as Swellow doesn't land a critical hit, we should have 3 chances to do so.
Just hit the counter, just hit the counter, just hit the counter. That's all you gotta do is hit the counter. Got maybe 2 chances, 2 more chances. Please, just hit the counter.
Well, with that, I have just one play. Foster knows Shockwave, which never misses. The issue is that she's not faster than Swellow, and with our horrendous defense stat, Aerial Ace has something like a 60% chance to one-shot. But as Shipka goes down to a quick attack, it's now my only out. Either Foster survives a hit, or I wipe. With just 2 HP remaining, Foster gets the first KO of the battle on turn 22. I avoided the wipe against Swellow, sure, but whether we can actually beat Winona remains to be seen. By edging my team and leading with Carpenter, I've ensured that the XP from taking out Swellow gets her to level 34, where she learns Ice Beam, which should help out immensely against Altaria. And I also catch a break here as Winona sends in Pelipper second, so Foster's free to snag another easy kill. Third is Skarmory, so I make a risky switch to Ortega on an Aerial Ace. Steel Wing would have been the better of the two options, but with a Citrus Berry, Ortega should live another. And since we outspeed, she can rip a Flamethrower before Skarmory hits us with a Sand attack.
Lock in. At least I'm not getting crit. All right, Ortega. Just be a bro. You're not a bro. You're not a f***ing bro, dude.
With Ortega dead, Foster comes back out and uses another Shockwave to get her third KO of the fight. As Altaria comes in last, I need a safe switch to Carpenter, which means that Foster has to go down. So now it's all up to sweet little Carpenter. Please, please, please pull through.
Yo! Carpenter! My goat! Get a crit! Get a crit! Get a crit! Let's go! Yeah! We did it, Patrick! We saved the city!
That very well may have been the single most RNG-packed battle in the history of this channel. And as lucky as that ending was, I don't think it comes close to how horrendous my luck was for the first 27 turns. Quick Dr. Flag on PhD math corner here. To recap, we missed 1 Icy Wind, 6 Secret Powers, 7 Rock Throws, 3 Counters, and 2 Flamethrowers. Here are the chances of hitting our moves at different stages of evasion and accuracy. So if we combine all of these numbers, in addition to the baseline accuracies of Icy Wind and Rock Throw, we find that the odds of missing that many times is 0.0025%, or roughly 1 in 40,000 odds. Now, this calculation isn't completely accurate because we did hit 1 of 7 Secret Powers, which causes all sorts of conditional probabilities that make things much more difficult to calculate, but the gist is that in scientific terms, this was really fucking unlucky. On the bright side, if the cloth of averages is to be believed, I should have pretty spectacular luck for the next 39,999 Nuzlocks I do, right? With 6 gym badges, we begin the long trek to Moss Deep City, though it's significantly shorter in Sapphire than it is in Emerald. So it's not too long until we've made it to Moss Deep City, with a ton of new teammates in tow. The most notable ones are Chalamet the Gulpin from Route 123, Cohen the Sveal from Shoal Cave, Belle the Magnemity from Route 134, and Fanning the Chinchou from Route 130. Tate and Liza just have a Solrock and Lunatone in this game, so since the latter's only attacking move is Psychic, I have an instant win with Lautner and Williams if I can quickly take out Solrock. And fortunately, I have the perfect plan to do just that.
All right, Chew. You're gonna make this real easy on us, buddy. You're gonna hit an 80% Hydro Pump. Here we go. Hydro Pump. Bubble Beam. Let's see it. Bubble Beam. How much does this do? Wonder if Water Gun would have done it. Nope. Nope. We need the Hydro Pump. Hit the Hydro! Let's go!
80% of the time, it works every time, baby. A few crunches later, Lunatone falls, and the 7th gym badge is ours. So now just a few more major fights remain. En route to the last showdown against Archie, I catch the single best encounter in the entire game, Machio the Meditite down on Seafloor Cavern. Then in the Cave of Origins, I catch the second best encounter in the entire game, Song the Talo. And finally, I also catch Crest the Clampearl from the underwater routes, all 3 of whom will pop off soon enough. Before that though, we have to save the world by taming the God of the Sea.
Peace!
With the world safe from Meryl's torrential floods, it's time for me to get the 8th and final gym badge by defeating the soon-to-be champion Wallace. Many of his Pokemon have the potential to hit quite hard, especially his Whiscash and Milotic. First though is Lovedisk, who simply tries to confuse Belle with a sweet kiss, but this ain't my first rodeo, so a Person Berry ensures that Belle can fire off a Spark, which ends up getting the KO. I was hoping Lovedisk would live with a Sliver so that we can burn a Hyper Potion here, but Belle is just a little too strong, I guess. So next up, Whiscash.
So this is gonna go for Earthquake. We're gonna go to Gosling, and we're simply not gonna get high roll crit. We're simply not gonna do that. We simply won't get high roll crit, Gosling, okay? Okay, buddy? All right, well, we would have died there with a crit, but it doesn't matter. Because now we're going to Mega Dwayne like the Rock for 50%. Boom. Big damage. Don't amnesia. Go for Rain Dance. Well, this sucks because now we're not going to kill with this probably. Unless we crit. Unideal, but it's fine. We're going to crit this. Gosling crits. It's fine. It's fine. Gosling crits this. Gosling crits this. See, I told you. Told you.
I am so good at this game. Against Celio, I bring Belle back in on an Aurora Beam. They take a bit more damage from the C-Pup's Water Pulse, but since our Spark gets a paralysis, Belle's free to outspeed and take the KO on the following turn. This forces Wallace into sending out Seaking, so gambling on his desire to set up Rain Dance, I stay in and successfully get off a Thunder Wave. Then I bring Gosling in and start doing damage with Mega Drains, though we have to cut the party short as Seaking connects with a critical hit Water Pulse that also causes a confusion. A switch to Wilson and back lets us continue to do damage, burning Wallace's final Hyper Potion and then eventually getting the KO, though by the end, Gosling does run out of Mega Drain PP, so he has to use Pursuit. Still, our team is in pretty good condition as we prepare to take on my Lodic. With Recover, this thing is going to be nasty to break through, so the general idea is to stall him out of Ice Beam such that Tremblay can get off a Leech Seed. But before that, I attempt Brute Force with Fanning Sparks, and though they don't do a crazy amount of damage, an early paralysis now ensures that all of my Pokemon have the speed advantage. Unfortunately, a critical hit Twister forces me to switch Fanning out earlier than I was hoping, so Tremblay comes in and immediately gets nailed by another critical hit for 52 damage, which means that I gotta take a risk to get off a Leech Seed. It's the only way to win this, and at the very least Tremblay doesn't miss, but then a Water Pulse is enough to get the kill. That's a tough loss. Tremblay was about to get access to Spore, which would have been incredible for the Elite Four. Somehow, we'll need to do it without him, but his death does at least give us the chance to do so. Because now that they have the support of Tremblay's Leech Seed recovery, Wilson and Cohen can easily wall my Lodic until he's out of Recover PP, and then eventually take him down. I can't help but feel that there was a better way to do that fight. I mean, had I not gotten the luck I did against Whiscash, things could have been even worse than they already were. But the results are the results, so after putting Tremblay to rest, we're free to make our way to the Pokemon League. Just 2 more encounters remain. In Evergrande City, I catch a Roselia named Armitage, and in Victory Road, I catch a Mawile named Skarsgård. As single-stage Pokemon, these are some of the strongest encounters in the game, though neither were the true bangers from their respective routes. Although Victory Road is littered with fairly strong trainers, nearly all of them are pretty easy. Only Wally is a true dangerous, mostly due to his double-teaming Calm Mind Gardevoir. Now, you might look at this moveset and think that a Dark-type completely walls him, but in Gen 3, Future Sight is typeless and can therefore hit Dark types. And since Dark type moves are special, if Gardevoir gets up even a single Calm Mind, he's not going to be taking much damage at all. There's also the tiny problem that against Cool Trainer Michelle, completely optional fight by the way, Lautner barely misses out on the KO against Medicham, who proceeds to slaughter our Piranha like a perfectly cooked fish fillet. At least he gets to take his killer down with him. Anyways, with the faster, stronger, and all-around better of my 2 Dark types dead, Wally's Gardevoir appears even scarier. But remember that little birdie I caught in the Cave of Origins? Well, she has the ability Guts, so by pre-burning her, Song can rip stab 140 base power Fachades off of a +1 attack stat. And when paired with the Choice Band that we just recently picked up while exploring Victory Road, that's enough for Song to one-shot every single one of Wally's Pokemon. Well, except for Magneton, who does immediately come in after we one-shot Altaria. They can be one-shot by an Earthquake from Johnson, who easily switches in on a Spark. And now with Magnezone down, Song's free to sweep the rest of Wally's team if we can get her back in safely. So in order to do that, I had planned a sacrifice. Sweet Gomez was marked for death. But there was still one way to save her life, because Wally brings in Roselia, which means I can switch to Chalamet on a resisted magical leaf. After another, the green goon hits Roselia with a yawn, and by staying in for one more turn to eat a leech seed, we can guarantee a perfectly safe switch to Song on the next turn without splattering Gomez's guts across the battlefield. Wally's actually clever enough to switch Roselia out here so that Natural Cure heals his sleep, but it doesn't really matter. All it takes is 3 more facades to win us the last fight before making it to the Pokemon League. What awaits us here is easily the hardest challenge of the game, and unlike the rest of our playthrough, I'm not going to be able to skate by on vibes and luck. Beating all 4 members of the Elite Four and the champion Steven with 6 babies that are slower, frailer, and weaker than most of the Pokemon we'll be facing up against requires extensive prep and tactical precision. But Sippy Cup Sapphire does give me 2 critical resources. If it wasn't already clear, enemies in Sippy Cup Sapphire do not give your Pokemon effort values. However, when creating Sippy Cup Sapphire, Pinky J intentionally left several dozen vitamins scattered throughout Hoenn for the player to collect. And these items still grant your Pokemon EVs. There's some caveats, of course, namely that there's only a handful of each, and one Pokemon can only consume 10 of the same vitamin, resulting in a maximum of 100 EVs in any given stat. But these boosts can really help us outspeed certain threats, ensure guaranteed one-shots, or provide added bulk. And I've made sure to save all 82 vitamins until now to give my Elite Four team the best chance at victory. The second special resource is that back in the Lily Cove department store, I can purchase pinch berries. These berries grant a boost to a specific stat when the holder falls below 25%, so with these 2 resources in mind, I go about building my team. After hours of theory crafting, here's the squad that'll be taking us to the Hall of Fame. First up is Carpenter the Snow Runt, an ever-present member of the party since her introduction. She's been pre-damaged to 28 HP and pumped with 8 calciums and 10 carbos. Second is Wilson the Speedy Staryu at full HP and the recipient of just 4 calciums. Third is Muniz the Torchic, also pre-damaged to 28 HP and the target for our 5 remaining calcium, as well as a single carbos. Fourth then is our heavy hitter, Machio the Metatite at a mere 5 HP, but roided up on 10 proteins and 1 carbos. And then fifth, believe it or not, is Crest the Clamperl at full HP and juiced out of his gourd on 10 HP ups, 10 irons, and 10 zincs. Which leaves our final teammate, who happened to be our very last encounter, Skarsgård the Mawile. He's at full HP and high off a cocktail of leftover vitamins. So with that, it's time to finish this run once and for all. Let's do this. Our first matchup is against Sydney, and immediately we get to see the insane power of Machio, who at 5 HP can come in and instantly consume his Salac Berry to give us the speed advantage.
Does it not activate immediately?
Yeah, so apparently in Gen 3, because of the way that berries are coded to trigger at the end of a turn, pinch berries don't activate right at the start of the battle. If I didn't have Protect here, that would have been an immediate wipe. But since I do, Machio can get the Salac Berry speed boost and then outspeed Mightyena to rip a reversal that is at a base power of 150, which is more than enough to one-shot even after an Intimidate. So yeah, the combination of Pure Power and Reversal is why Machio is the best encounter in the game. Couple things to point out here though. One is that the XP from defeating Mightyena gets Machio to level 56, ensuring that he gains 2 more hit points. I've also given an experience share to Skarsgård so that he too grows to level 56. Remember, according to my rule set, the level cap ends at the start of the first battle. Anyways, reversals now kill the rest of Sydney's team, though there are 2 tiny hiccups that I need to prepare for. First, Sydney's Sharpedo has the ability Rough Skin, which causes Machio to take a tiny bit of chip when making contact with Reversal, hence pre-damaging to 5 HP instead of 1. And second, in order to avoid getting killed by Shiftry's priority fake out, I do have to make sure to protect for a turn before getting the 5th KO and winning us the battle. So next is Phoebe, and definitely our trickiest matchup, given that we don't and never had a Dark-type Carvana who could have made this much easier. I once again start with Machio, who's now holding a choice band to ensure that we can get a clean KO on Phoebe's lead Dusclops with a Shadow Ball. Take note here that it's now Carpenter who's holding the XP share to get to level 56. However, that brings in the first of Phoebe's 2 Bannettes, and unfortunately, Machio just doesn't outspeed. So I make the switch to Skarsgård, who resists all of Bannette's attacks and can drop her attack with an Intimidate, though that does nothing if she gets a critical hit. A special defense drop is also unideal, but at level 56, with the single Carbos he shot up, Skarsgård can outspeed Bannette and get a guaranteed 2-shot with Crunch. And since our foe simply goes for a Spite, we can get the KO without taking any more damage. That brings in Phoebe's second Dusclops, who knows Earthquake. Without a flying type, my best answer is Cress, who's holding a Deep Sea Tooth that doubles his special attack stat, which ensures that we can actually 2-shot Dusclops with a Waterfall, which remains at 80 base power. Since we come in on a Confuse Ray, I decide to switch back to Skarsgård, who gets off an Intimidate that works well with Cress's shell armor, which prevents critical hits. So by now switching in on a very weak Earthquake, we can get off Waterfall number 1. And after tanking a Shadow Ball, I thought we were in the clear until Phoebe reveals that her ace is holding a Citrus Berry. It's obvious in hindsight, but it's not something I planned for, and as a result, our second Waterfall comes up short, letting Dusclops nail us with another Confuse Ray. So I got to switch back to Skarsgård as Phoebe heals. With another Intimidate, Dusclops is now doing very little to Cress, so after waterfalling once and eating another Shadow Ball, I take the opportunity to use Rest. Again, since we can't get crit, this should let Cress take the kill at higher HP, though he does need to get a little lucky and break through Confusion. Nice job, buddy. Way to show up in a big way. Fourth is Sableye, so I make the switch to Skarsgård for another Intimidate as Psychic does a Sliver. Crunch then does a bit of damage before Sableye hits an Attract, but it's not gonna save him as I switch to Cress on a Feint attack. Sableye outspeeds, but since she just goes for another Psychic, our Waterfall picks up the KO and brings Phoebe down to her second Bannette. And though this one's faster than Skarsgård, she's still got nothing to threaten even neutral damage. So with the help of our held Citrus Berry, Skarsgård's more than capable of tanking a few Psychics and using 2 Crunches to win us the battle. This gets us to the matchup against Glacia, which means that it's time for another Machio pop-off. After protecting on the first turn to trigger his held Salic Berry, 200 base power reversals cleanly one-shot all 5 ice types. The fact that Magnetite can solo 2 Elite Four teams entirely on his own is why every single streamed victory of Sippy Cup Sapphire has used one. It's hard to deny that Machio is the Elite Four MVP, a god amongst men and the savior of this run. Anyways, that leaves the final member of the Elite Four, Drake. And this is all up to Carpenter. At level 56, she can cleanly one-shot Shelgon with an Ice Beam, which also gets Wilson to level 56 before bringing in Drake's first Flygon. But now that our Salic Berry has activated, Carpenter can just barely outspeed and one-shot the remaining members of Drake's team for another easy victory. It took a lot of drugs to pull it off, but Carpenter did it. She's the first SnowRun to sweep Drake on stream in Sippy Cup Sapphire history. Which means that there's now just one last trainer, the champion Steven. His team is terrifying, and as our battle begins, I prepare for the inevitable sacrifices that are soon to come. Steven leads with Skarmory and I bring in Wilson. With access to Rapid Spin, they're the perfect counter to the spike-setting Steel type, but if Skarmory simply goes for Aerial Ace, which in this case he does, I needed to ensure that we can get the 2-shot with Thunderbolt. Hence the XP to get to level 56, the added special attack EVs from Calcium's, and Wilson's held Magnet. A minus special attack stat is really not doing us any favors here. As Aggron comes in next, it's time to unleash Wilson's secret weapon.
All right, here's where the fun begins, because what we are going to do is we are going to hit a Hydro Pump and one-shot this, because Waterfall does not one-shot, but it doesn't matter, because Wilson gonna hit that Hydro Pump. Boom! Let's go! Woo!
If you've never tried and successfully hit an 80% hydro pump, I'm sorry, but you've never lived. This right here is the juice, the reason to Nuzlocke, and mankind knows no greater high. Now, of course, every high has its inevitable crash, and as Cradley comes out third, it's time to bid farewell to a hell of a teammate. With one more for good measure, Wilson connects with another hydro pump, and then a Giga Drain sends them to the great beyond. This lets me bring in Machio, whose Salic Berry now immediately triggers. With a single reversal, Cradley falls, and Steven brings in the second of his 2 fossils.
All right, we didn't quite get to 58, so this is not a guaranteed kill. Question is, does Machio live or does Machio die? Let's see it, Machio. Boom! My goat. All right, this is Claydol. So here's the thing, Machio. Rest in pieces, Machio. You did great. You took us to the finish line. I'm sorry you don't get to partake in the festivities. But alas, you are a martyr, a messiah like yourself. In order to truly become enshrined, you must die. Or you could crit, but... Oh my god, he crit! No!
Now, despite an absolutely legendary performance, what I said in the moment still remains true. In order for Machio to truly become the messiah of Sippy Cup Sapphire, to be etched in the Flagon HG Hall of Fame, he must die. And in doing so, he will ensure our victory. With one last reversal, Machio brings Metagross down to nearly 20%, and then finally falls to a Meteor Mash. Rest well, my king. Muniz the Torchic now takes the field, his Salic Berry instantly activating. And with the damage from Machio's reversal, we don't even need to risk an inaccurate overheat. A single flamethrower powered up by Blaze is enough to cleanly kill Metagross, winning us not just the battle against Steven, but the entire run. I cannot tell you how much fun I had with this playthrough. What an absolute blast and a hell of a cute little ROM hack. Pinky J really outdid herself, so please, please, please go give her some love and play the game for yourself using the links in the description down below. If you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Or don't, I don't know. But be sure to let me know what ROM hacks you want to see me play next. Stay tuned for more Nuzlocke videos, and until then, remember to always, always, always play around the critical hit.